Are you looking to speak like a native English speaker? In this video, I'm going to tell you what it takes to speak like a native English speaker and give you some very real tips and tools and tricks and things that I have learned as I've been training the American accent to non-native English speakers for the last 14 years. But there does come some good news and bad news with it. So let's first talk about the bad news. Bad news is it's extremely difficult to completely master the American accent if you did not grow up speaking English. That is, unless you're willing to commit a lot of time and effort into perfecting this craft. Think of it as Olympic level athlete. Okay, they train their whole life and commit everything to getting this result. And I've seen this possible. I've seen it through some of my students that have come through my program. They are committed. And some of them have just a real natural talent and gift with accents and languages and sound systems. And so they are able to kind of adopt that easier. And some have done it through just a ton of repetition, a ton of practice, and have learned the tools that I'm going to teach you here in this video. But the good news is it is possible. Okay, so we're going to talk through what an accent is. So what an accent is the carryover of the sounds and the rhythm from your native language to English. So when you are learning English, you're learning the sounds and the rhythm of that language, but sometimes if you learn English later in life, you know, past the age of like 12 to 14 years old, sometimes those neural pathways for the sounds and rhythm of English don't quite get connected. So it's not going to automatically happen. So you have to deliberately train this into your brain and into your mouth to speak with these sounds and rhythm of English. And so that's what we do with accent training, is that we teach you, okay, what is the difference between the way you are speaking and the way that a native English speaker speaks? And then we're gonna pull you along that spectrum. So think of it as this line. It's like where you are and where a native speaker is. And we're gonna take you from where you are and we're gonna just pull you and stretch you and teach you and train you to get closer and closer to that native sounding accent. Let's also talk about confidence. Because for most people, that is why they want to learn how to speak like a native English speaker. You know, my students will come to me and they say, I want to speak like a native English speaker. And I ask them why. What is it you want deeper? What is that going to give you? And most of them are saying confidence, that I'll be able to speak with complete confidence like I do with my native language. That I'll be able to speak freely and openly and have all these opportunities because I'm not held back by this communication barrier. I'm not held back because I don't sound like everyone else. So let's really talk about confidence. So again, that spectrum from feeling insecure about the way you speak to feeling confident. So a lot of times in my program, what happens is that students come into my program and they say, okay, I am not feeling very confident in the way I speak English, and I have this accent, a foreign accent, and I want to sound more like a native, and I want to feel confident. So there's these two different things. So what we do is we train and teach not only the skills of how to speak like a native English speaker, but how to build confidence in the process, okay? So learning to speak like a native speaker, yeah, the closer you get to that, oftentimes that confidence comes with it. And as you train your brain and your mind around speaking English, you're going to build that confidence too. And that's part of my program, is we're going to build both the mindset and the mouth and ear to be able to speak more like a native English speaker. So there's these elements that are in place. We want to build more confidence. You want to be clearly understood and feel confident. So we're going to do that as we're training the American accent. So the good news is that you don't have to completely master the American accent to achieve that level of confidence that you're really wanting. What I've seen through thousands of students is they work and improve their pronunciation and their accent American English, and they get to the point where they're maybe like 80 to 90% there, and they feel confident, they feel wonderful, they are not asked to repeat themselves, they've worked on their confident mindset, and at that point they're like, this is good. I've achieved my goal because I feel confident. My language is not keeping me back in any way. And so now I can go and do what I want to do and still have an accent, but now I'm actually really love my accent. I love who I am and where I'm from, and I have this personal power that comes from completely embracing all of me. That's the exciting piece that I see with my students, and I love to walk them through that process. Now, if sounding completely like a native is still the goal, I'm all for that. Let's keep going. Let's keep reaching to that next level and next level. So if that is your goal, then you really have to understand, okay, where are you versus where is a native English speaker? And how do you get from this point to this point? And it's all about learning the sounds of American English and the rhythm of American English. As you train your mind and your mouth to move in a new way, closer to what a native speaker says and sounds like, then you're going to kind of move along that spectrum. I have so many examples in my program of this. I love talking about Ipar from China. She is actually an actress, so she went all in with learning how to speak like a native English speaker. And so she dove in, she practiced, she trained, she learned the rules, she learned where she was at versus a native speaker. She really trained and practiced those sounds and rhythm. She took it very, very seriously. And this is actually something that she worked very hard during COVID. She would be in her room and she would play Taylor Swift songs over and over and over again, and she'd have the words there written for her, and she would repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And she would listen to YouTube videos, and she would go through my training and my worksheets that I've given her, and she just worked and worked and worked. She also got feedback from other native English speakers, including our trainers at Pronunciation Pro. So she knew exactly what she needed to improve and how to do that. Okay, so she was such a great example of it is possible and you can do it, but get that repetition and practice, and the more repetition and practice, really truly understanding what the differences are, is going to take you from where you are now, wherever that might be. Maybe you're at a beginner level, maybe you're intermediate, maybe you're more advanced. It doesn't really matter. The point that you're trying to get is then, as a native speaker where nobody can tell the difference between you and a native speaker, then you just keep walking down that line. Just keep moving and practicing down that line. Now, so much of this is also about grammar and vocabulary and learning the way that native speakers say things and how they use words, but pronunciation accent is certainly a huge part of that. So whatever your goal is, whatever you're working to accomplish, I say go for it. Go for that goal, and as you go for that goal of maybe you do think, okay, I do want to speak like a native English speaker, and you start walking down that road and you build all the confidence and the power in your life, you're opening up opportunities for yourself because you're removing that barrier, that English communication barrier, and you get to a certain point where you say, oh yeah, I don't really actually want to sound like a native English speaker, then great. You can kind of stop your practice there, or stop that pursuit there and pursue other things. What we're here to do is just meet you where you want to go and say, okay, you have a goal, how do we get you there? And I'm just going to leave you with this, another example of an extraordinary student of ours, and this is Koji from Brazil. Now, he started in Brazil and he worked for Google in Brazil, and then he moved on to working for Google in San Francisco in Silicon Valley, and he was the head of design at Google. But when he moved over to the United States, he felt that barrier, that communication barrier. He did not feel like he could do as much as he was doing in Brazil because he now had to do it in English. And so he got into my training, he got the practice and the feedback and all the tools that are available to be able to improve and speak more like a native English speaker. And as he did that, he improved his spoken English, he built his confidence, he owned his story. That was a big part that he actually talked about on medium.com. He wrote an article about his journey from, growing up in Brazil to working at these big companies, US companies. And he said that the more that I owned my story, the more I was able to come into my greater power. And so now he has a successful career. He has a podcast that's very successful, and he still has an accent. He got to that point where he said, I feel confident, I am clear and easy to understand, and I feel confident enough that I actually don't really care about sounding exactly like a native English speaker anymore. What I want is to get my voice out there and spread my message in the work that he does. And he's doing that now through his podcast. So whatever your goals, whatever you need to do to get your voice out there, let's do it. And I know you can accomplish this goal. So if you're just getting started with your English pronunciation practice and you want some really quick and easy tips, go ahead and check out my next video, 3 easy tips to quickly improve your American English pronunciation.